Welcome to the Mind Gallery. This is our penultimate session of the Charlotte Mason Unboxed live workshops that we have been hosting this year. And the purpose of these workshops is to add confidence and knowledge to your implementation and practice of a Charlotte Mason education in your home. So if you haven't watched all the others, go back and you are a Mind Gallery member, go back to the section on Substack that says Charlotte Mason Unboxed, and you'll find all the replays there. If you need any help, give me a shout and I'll find those for you. But this really is a building journey. And we've done lots of work on what the philosophy is, what even down to last month when we talked about what each subject could possibly look like within the Charlotte Mason philosophy. And tonight's session is really trying to, I want to say protect you from some of these things, but I can never do that, can I? I can't really protect you guys from hearing perfectionism and purism and crazy things that people will say and do and think about this beautiful life-giving approach to education and childhood. So what I'm trying to do here is throw some things that people say that might get to you occasionally, just to say, hey, let's work through these together, and let's think, what does Charlotte Mason think and say, and how does this help you? And I think that a big part of finding your freedom within the Charlotte Mason philosophy, which is my whole ethos, isn't it? It's my whole reason for doing what I do, is to help you find your freedom with your children at their stage, not necessarily their age of their development and their growing learning. So to do that, sometimes we have to unpick those little bits, those niggles, those things that make you not feel confident, those barriers. I talk a lot about barriers to our children's learning, but I also think we should address the barriers to our own confidence within the method and within her ideas. So I've got 5 tonight, and I have done on our membership a previous workshop looking at the same kind of theme, but actually tackling a few different myths on there. So for those of you who are watching on the replay, hello, welcome. I normally say that a bit earlier, but if you're watching on the replay, and for those of you who are live in the room and you want to go back and watch on the replay, have a look down this post. That will be linked to the other workshop as well. So we've now got hours and hours and hours of content, I guess we'll call it that, of help and support for your Charlotte Mason education on the Mind Gallery membership. So I hope you will dig into that. Someone sent me a message today just saying, oh, I've been going through the archives, and just while I've been getting on with other things, watching some of the videos, it's really helping me, and I love that. So if you are new to the Mind Gallery, if you're new to these sessions, just know there are lots more like it. So please do go and dig around. If you are watching on the replay, we will be chatting in the Zoom chat and you won't be able to see it. I'm so sorry. You will hear me refer to it, like maybe at the end of our session, but I will read out as much as possible. But you are encouraged to join in, tell us your answers, your favorite bits, give us your quotes and questions in the replay post. For those of you who are live in the room, thank you for being here. Nice to see so many of your faces. Please feel free to interact in the chat. Now, before I delve into our 5 sessions, we should be here for just under an hour this evening. My famous last words, I know. But I don't know if I recommended this for a long time, but I used to recommend it all the time, and I will still do to today. That this wonderful book called When Children Love to Learn. And this is a collection of essays, which was edited by Elaine Cooper, a lovely lady who I have met in person. And it's a practical application of Charlotte Mason's philosophy for today. It's been out a long time. Elaine Cooper's involved with the Charlotte Mason School in Cambridge, in England, if anybody knows about that. But this is a wonderful, really informative, interesting, insightful delve into the application of Charlotte Mason's methods. I am just going to just text my husband to say that my battery is low, bear with, and I have left my charger downstairs, which is not like me, is it? This never happens. So I'm just going to send a quick SOS text, everybody. Bear with me a moment to talk amongst yourselves in the chat, because I can't talk and type at the same time. Please, can you bring up I have to see it out loud. It usually lasts a little while anyway. There we go. Okay, so while we're waiting for modern Mr. Mason to save the day, I'm actually going to read a little bit as an introduction. And if you have got this book, the opening essay is called The Value of Charlotte Mason's Work for Today by Susan Schaefer Macaulay. And she does a couple of essays in here. And I just wanted to read a little part from this essay, which I've underlined and got all sorts of kind of annotations around it. It's absolutely fantastic. So okay, I think the charger is coming. Oh, hang on, he's saying where. Sorry guys, it's very unprofessional of me. There we go. We'll try that. All right, we shall start reading, and then in a moment that door will open. This is very live from the Bowden house this evening. Okay, so this is what she said. Miss Mason's educational philosophy is not about what someone thought as a Victorian. It is not tied into the past as if trying to hark back to a golden age. That is why it is inappropriate to illustrate materials about Charlotte Mason with exclusively Victorian pictures. These ideas, being true ones, have an unchangeable underlying pattern and yet give freedom for individual life and practice. Therewith. Thank you, Dave Bowden. Oh, it's not even mine.
I don't know where yours is.
Oh, I think Joel might have taken it. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Can you just plug it in for me?
Yeah, let me.
Thanks. He's saving the day. This is not like me. I usually have everything ready. Thank you.
Just let me know if it works.
Everyone give Mr. Bowden a round of applause.
Who's it?
Yay!
Hi, Joanna.
It's
Yeah.
Joanna, not Joanna. Leah,
Oh.
Erica, and Demalza. All right, thank you, Dave. There we go.
Cut me out the replay.
I won't. I don't edit anything. Okay, so did you catch that last bit there, which I love this bit? These ideas, being true ones, have an unchangeable underlying pattern, and she's got form in brackets there, and yet give freedom for individual life and practice. I should think this is fantastic. Charlotte Mason and those like Elsie Kitchen, who was one of her friends, who worked with her and carried on after her death, used the canon of Western cultural heritage with an English perspective as the core of educational content. This was appropriate, for they were educating mainly British children from nations that were part of this stream of history. However, even while Charlotte Mason was still living, other people recognized that they could use the core ideas while developing their own educational applications. Just going to say that again. They could use the core ideas while developing their own educational applications. The Ambleside books by her on education were sent out to India to Amy Carmichael, who founded the Donovar Fellowship. She too recognized in the writings, and you've heard me talk about this, I've even written about it in Modern Miss Mason, the roots and trunk she was looking for as she cared for and educated Indian children. Amy Carmichael was ahead of her time, And in that she tried not to impose British culture on the community. She respected India and wanted the children to be Indian. She quite rightly saw that as long as the roots and trunk were in place, which one cannot and must not change, then she could adapt the detail, the foliage, so that it was truly Indian. For instance, instead of using English nursery rhymes or tales, she wrote amusing poems in Tamil about local subjects such as insects, bugs, and flowers. So again, she goes on to there. Um, you can read it for yourself. But I'll just pick out these two lines again that I think are really important and that we carry them through our whole understanding of why we're doing what we're doing and the importance of considering before anything else our household situation, our children, and the abilities that our children have. So the two things here that I pulled out. These ideas, so all Charlotte Mason's ideas being true ones, have an unchangeable underlying pattern and yet give freedom for individual life and practice. And then the second thing to pull out again, other people recognized that they could use the core ideas while developing their own educational applications. Now, you can imagine why this stood out to me so much when I first read this. It was like someone was, we were singing off the same hymn sheet, as it were. But it was just so important to me to read this somewhere else that we have to be able to apply it to our family and our situation and our culture and our time. So these are some of the things that I wanted to start with this evening, just remembering all that. We hold all that truth intention. We learn about the philosophy, we grow in our understanding. And if you've been doing the whole Unboxed course, the journey through of what it is, what it's not, what our values are, what the educational practice is, what the methods actually look like, what the subjects could look like if you did them, whichever ones you wanted to do. So tonight we're going to tackle some of the things it's not. And then our last session, which will be in November, we are going to look at the ongoing impact of a Charlotte Mason education on our lives, how it doesn't end when your children finish their formal learning years. And I want to talk about the impact on the whole person, the whole family, and the whole life. So that will be November's. Don't miss that one. In December, we'll have a Christmas party or something. So it's not what you think, 5 myths about a Charlotte Mason education. And as I've already said, even though I might not pause to read all the comments and look at the comments, please do use the comment section, chat amongst yourselves, whatever you might think. Goodness, I used to think that, or I know somebody who thought that. Okay, so here's one. A Charlotte Mason education is only for young children. This is a very common myth, and I've heard people say it. I've been in conversations with people who've said this, that it's kind of for little children, and when they get to a certain age, they will have a proper education and they'll do something more rigorous, and they use words like that. And it's interesting because this could be for various, that they may have only heard about it, practiced with younger children, but it may come from the fact that home education, Charlotte Mason's, the first volume in her series of books on education, was written for children under the age of 9 years old. And it's probably the most read of her collection. A lot of people read that book and then they don't read anymore. Obviously, over here on the Mind Gallery, we spent a whole year reading all of them. So that's not us. We are not one of those. But this book really does kind of cover the emphasis is on those between sort of 6 and 9 years old, that early education. And another reason why this may be a bit of a common myth is because that is where we lay down these foundations. It is where those roots and trunk, those kind of core things are taught and implemented, and those rhythms and patterns of a Charlotte Mason education are set in place. We begin to practice narration, attention, observation. But what we know from history, from historical context, from her writing, from the PNEU articles, from a myriad of different things. We know that the Charlotte Mason education and methods went right through the teenage years up until, what you may call graduation in some places. It may take us to, up to 14, 15, 16. Obviously, we're talking about an era where a lot of children didn't continue school after 14, 15. I don't know about you guys. I think my mum finished school at 14, 15 and went into work. It's very different now, isn't it? Our perspective. And then we have to read it through that lens. Like I have to remember the culture and context that I'm in today. So it's not only for young children. We know this because the educational practice and methods are applicable for a 5-year-old as much as they are for a 15-year-old. The things that we set in place, the foundations that are put in place with young children can be used, extended, right up into those older years. And what happens is when people say, how do you do Charlotte Mason in high school, whatever it is, basically the methods remain the same. The resources, the books, the living education becomes long, the books become longer, a little bit denser, and the lessons become longer, and the application is slightly different, what that looks like, even going, and we've done lots of workshops on this, going from oral narrations to written narrations to compositions. There is this gradual process that takes a person from the very beginning right through. I mean, I still practice a Charlotte Mason education in my life. I will narrate. I will make sure I'm memorizing poetry. I will do all these things. And I'm a 50-year-old woman, so it keeps going. But that's for November. We'll talk about that in November. So we know it's not only for young children. Why would somebody think that? Why would they kind of throw that out there or believe that? Generally, it's because they are uninformed and do not have a wide, deep, and great understanding of Charlotte Mason's ideas. And it may just come from what they see. And so, again, this is not all for this evening, but from using some of our other learning throughout the year and last year, we know that there are these building blocks to a Charlotte Mason education that take a young person all the way through. So where you'd start with transcription and copy work, you move on to prepared dictation, compositions. There's whatever stage and your child is ready to do, there is that natural moving on. Same with narrations. You start with oral narrations and then move on to written narrations, and those narrations can become forms of essays, which can then form compositions and whole books and doctorates if you want. Whatever your family ends up doing, there is this wonderful transition. So Charlotte Mason education is only for young children. Big cross through that one. That is not true. It is a formative time. It is a growing time. It's a beautiful time, but it's just the beginning. All right, this is a really common way of thinking, and it's an interesting one. The Charlotte Mason method is rigid and old-fashioned. And this is an easy one to understand where people have got this from, isn't it? Because, she was living, teaching, working late 19th century, early 20th century. And so we read her work and it is written in an old-fashioned way. But what we know is that the methods and the ideas and even the heart behind it, the reasoning for it is just as relevant and important and true today in 2025 as it was back then. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second, and I want to recommend a few books to you which might be helpful in this. So have I got them all here? So there's an author called Karen Glass, who is a wonderful teacher of the Charlotte Mason philosophy. And some people do get stuck in the old-fashioned language of the home education series. Um, if that is you, if you are watching on the replay, if you are in the room and you're like, you know what, Leah, I really get stuck in her the way she words things, and I find it hard to really bring it into a 21st century. Well, I'm really grateful for Karen because she has done a couple of things here. So this is um a Thinking Love. And this is actually a version of home education. Studies from Charlotte Mason's home education. And what she has done, so I'm going to read the back so give you a bit of context. Today's readers are as inspired by Charlotte Mason's educational ideas as were the parents who heard her original 8 lectures on home education in 1886. Much of the dated information, so about wool clothing and Victorian era science, has been set aside, and the remaining text presented as a series of short curated readings. Each section includes questions and study material focused on important principles about education. Read alone or enjoy discussion with a group of interesting friends. So this basically is home education, but kind of taken out all those things that you might stumble over. And then just a helpful discussion questions, all that kind of stuff. So this is volume 1. And then before that, actually quite some years ago, she did the same thing really with, this is volume 6, and it's called Mind to Mind, an essay towards a philosophy of education. And so really you want to, if you are finding Charlotte Mason's books a bit of a blockage, a bit of a stumbling block to your learning, don't worry. Like the fact that she's produced these means that's very common for that to happen. And so it hasn't taken they are absolutely a living book. They are exactly what Charlotte was trying to say. It's just removed some of that the stuff that makes people kind of stumble over it. So recommend those two. I mean, I recommend anything that Karen has written, to tell you the truth. So she's written a fantastic book on narration called Know and Tell. I'm not trying to get you to spend all your money before Christmas comes, but just, put them on your Christmas list. And then another one called In Vital Harmony. And this really talks about children are born persons and education is a science of relationship. So recommend all these. Start your own book club, get reading them. Absolutely brilliant. So is it old-fashioned? Is it rigid? No, absolutely not. We know that this is a science of relationship. It is living, is organic. It is even her language, atmosphere, discipline, life. The whole emphasis on education as a life is that organic nature. It's moving, it's shaped around you. It kind of happens as your children are growing and changing and learning. And this is really, really important to remember. So yes, it was originally set in this Victorian era, which felt rigid and old-fashioned at the time. And some of the things that she may talk about around wool and whatever else, her stories and her kind of analogies and the things that she ties into her writing. Yes, of course, they were relevant for her time. And she often quotes from popular culture, plays and books. But we have to hear the heart of it. We have to take out of it, where does this come from and how does this apply to my 21st century family? So we know this is not true. It is not rigid. I think there are many voices who would try to say that it is rigid. It is, you have to do it a certain way. It has to look a certain way. You must read this particular book, otherwise you're doing it wrong. If you've ever heard that, if that is the narrative that you've heard, if that's kind of this buzzing little sound in your head, we want to give you a permission slip to walk away from that this evening and to find your freedom in this. The whole nature of the Charlotte Mason education is that it is freeing and wide and spacious. And that is a word I use a lot. It's very spacious. And that means there's room for you. in that and room for your children. So the Charlotte Mason method is rigid and old-fashioned, big cross in that one. We know that's not true because many of us are living proof that our beautiful 21st century children are loving it and learning from it, as are we. All right, this one. The Charlotte Mason method is anti-technology. An interesting one, isn't it? And this is a kind of a contentious area within even just parenting discussions and raising children around technology. I'm not going to get into that this evening. You can read books like Tech Wise. I can't remember the author. If anybody's got any suggestions or recommendations, pop them in the chat and I can repost those in the replay. But if you're reading books that have been helpful to you, but that's not what I'm getting into. My main thing here is that is it anti-technology? Well, Charlotte Mason obviously didn't have any framework for that because these things didn't exist. There wasn't iPads and phones and computers and the internet when she was producing her work and being a practitioner of these beautiful ideas. What we do know about her is that she was progressive, that she was forward thinking, that she wanted to break the norm and kind of push buttons and push things forward. But what we also knew is that she held tight to the principles. So whatever was changing, and she said herself, science will progress, ideas and things will change. People will be learning and changing all the time. Even when she talked about living books, she said, learn to discern what a living book is. That means we get to understand it for ourselves and learn what we can with what is in front of us and what is ahead of us. So the person, the Charlotte Mason, the person, it's impossible to say because these things didn't exist, obviously, historically. That's a fact. The philosophy, the method, does that lean towards being anti-technology? Again, we can't say that because the two never existed together. But what we can say is, how does technology serve the foundations of the philosophy? How does technology serve the practice and the methods of a Charlotte Mason method? Now, again, I think I did a whole workshop on technology in the Charlotte Mason philosophy. So I will, if I remember this one right, well, I will link that so you guys can go into the details of that. And I spend a whole evening looking at that. But let's think about what this could look like. So we are obviously all the way from listening to the audiobook versions of her books to reading them online, having a whole curriculum free online via Ambleside Online, available via the internet, all there for us. So the actual access to her ideas is through technology. That's point one. The second thing is we can use technology and ask the questions of that. So one, are we a slave to it, or is it actually supporting us and serving us and our ideas? For instance, can I use a identification app to look at this plant that I'm trying to figure out when I'm in the middle of the woods? Can I use the Merlin app to identify a bird? Yes, 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 absolutely. Use what you can to increase your connection with nature and knowledge. Even if I'm completely on my own and I'm just wandering around, I always have the Merlin app, and I can't remember, I do a plant one as well, a tree, one for trees and plants. Always have those in hand, be ready. What about stargazing at night? You can download an app that you can hold your phone up and it'll show you where the constellations are. I've had such incredible fun with my kids walking around with that kind of thing. So for nature study, there are so many wonderful things that we can do. Does that mean that we never bring out our lovely field guides? Of course not. Do both. The other thing is that actually collating and collecting information. I was just chatting with Joanne a little bit earlier and she was well, I hope I can say this because somebody's in the room with you, but anyway, I'll say you were sharing some incredible pictures. I was blown away that a child of yours had drawn and you'd taken a picture of, and so they were on her phone and she captured them and they were absolutely beautiful. But the fact that that piece of paper might get lost and it might get, I don't know, chewed up by a cat or something like that. But we now have the technology to capture our children's learning and drawing and development and store that for them to be able to see in later years. Again, how can we not say that's a brilliant idea? I want to use that. I want to take that and use that for our good. There's so much more, isn't there? Things like maths, I found really helpful finding various apps and things for my kids, but we get to choose. And the question always is it serving my what I believe about the philosophy and how I want to implement this with my children? And so that is the question I would be asking in every subject, in every part of the method, that generally, of course, we want our children to be interacting with books and pens and pencils and crayons and paints and grass and trees. That needs to be the prerogative. That needs to take priority. But are there things within technology that can serve what I'm trying to do? I am a huge proponent of things like Google Arts and Culture. Get yourself, if you've got an iPad or a tablet of some kind and you want to access a piece of art, many of them you can scroll right in, zoom right into them and look at the detail of the art. You couldn't even do that if you were stood in front of the picture, in a London gallery. You can't get that close to them. Whereas I've sat with my children and zoomed right into pieces of art and looked at the detail on somebody's face or the paint on a tree or a flower. So here is of course, it's not anti-technology. We don't know if I believe that she would want us to progress. But what I know of her from learning about her, I believe that she was progressive, that she was forward thinking, and she'd want us to move forward, but also principled. So what are the principles? What do we hold to? And how can these things in our modern day serve what we're doing? So always be thinking about that. We don't want to become a slave to these things. I had a little moment today. Lots of you will know that I have a part-time job at the moment for Samaritan's Purse, and I was sat in a boardroom today. Very different kind of life nowadays. It's only a few days. I was sat in a boardroom. There was some, boardroom like discussions going on. There was spreadsheets on the screen, and just to my right, there was hyacinth outside, and a red admiral butterfly just flew down and sat on the flower, and it caught my eye. I was watching it, and there was some discussion going on, but my reaction, because of who I am and the many 20 years of doing this, was to stop everybody and go, oh, look, a red admiral butterfly. Which would have been completely inappropriate in that setting. And I had to stop. And do you know what I did? I had my notebook in front of me and I just stopped. And it was okay to pause. They were continuing with what they needed to talk about. And I just jotted it down amongst other notes about charity things and other things going on. I just jotted down red admiral butterfly through the boardroom window on a hyacinth. And, because that was me. I'm telling you this story to show you as well that in the everyday, normal, just simple things of life, that when you're doing anything, when this way of living has caught you, it captures your heart, it doesn't ever get out of you. And even in the midst of different situations and work settings and wherever life takes you, may we always spot the red admiral butterfly no matter what's going on. And I was grateful in that moment that even amongst this very modern situation that I was in, surrounded by technology, this gorgeous little flutter of red caught my eye. So again, this picture for me was that we can live amongst it. We can sit the two together. But it doesn't mean we lose sight of one just because we're in the other. So consider these things, think about it for your children. You've got to make those decisions for yourself. If you are in a household where this is a struggle and you're finding it quite hard to deal with technology, chat with someone about it, read some of these brilliant books. The one that keeps coming to mind is TechWise, but there are many others. But have those conversations, and just even with your families, with your children, think about how you can start to lean away a little bit rather than completely leaning into technology, and make sure you're fueling and feeding your life and their lives with many other beautiful things as well, because it is part of all our lives. So we don't know what she would feel, really. We can't speak for her. But what we know of her and what we know of the ideas and the methods and the writing is that we can use technology in our 21st century homes to serve the principles. Now, this seems like a little bit of a funny one, like, of course, this isn't right. You must replicate a Victorian classroom to do it right. And what I really mean by that is the classroom is just one little image of what you might want to replicate. And I'm not talking about loving vintage things. And gosh, I remember once being at a I guess an antique shop or an antique fair, and there was this absolutely gorgeous Victorian desk, and it's very expensive. And I kept saying to Dave, I have to have it. And it's like, no, you don't. I'm like, I do. It's what they would have used. I did not get it. It did not come home with me. But that pull towards that lovely memorabilia and just that what it would have been like, it is lovely. And there are people who do set up a classroom if they have the room. And but what I mean by this, and what some people do believe, is that they have to replicate almost what it looked like exactly, the plan, the program, the timings of the day, the when things happen. I was coaching somebody recently who said to me, my husband works shifts, and it really works for us to do what most people call morning time in the evening, because we're all together at the end of the day. And she was like, is that okay? I'm like, of course it's okay. If it's okay, you need to do what's right for your family. And I think there are these ideas of replicating exactly how a Charlotte Mason teacher or governess would have done something. And if we do it this way, therefore the outcome will be, ABC. We know that's not correct. We're not replicating, we're not repeating, we are reforming. And there's a brilliant talk by Art Middleclough. We've been using Charlotte Mason poetry this year to gather our learning from the Parents Review articles. So if you go over to the website, I think he did the talk this summer when I was there in Minnesota, and it's all about this. It's absolutely probably one of the best talks on Charlotte Mason I've ever heard. Again, if I remember right, I will pop it into the replay, and I'm sure I did post it at some point over on our membership page. But it's absolutely brilliant, just an understanding of respecting and remembering and celebrating, but we don't have to replicate. We get to reimagine. We get to bring it alive and afresh into our 21st century homes and families. And this is an interesting conversation, because some people feel very attached to, but it was done this way and it worked. Therefore, of course, we have to do it that way. And, I've got 20 years of raising children and using and studying the Charlotte Mason philosophy and being a practitioner of her ideas. not trying to replicate them, but just looking at my family and saying, how do these ideas, how do these beautiful rhythms tie into what my kids look like? And that makes it very lively and very fun, and you're trying things out and you're experimenting. But again, going back to some of our earlier sessions in our Unboxed live courses, workshops, we go back to those foundations, those principles, and what Karen Glass points out in Vital Harmony in this book. I'm not on any commission, by the way. I genuinely love these books. What she said in here is that Charlotte Mason said, yes, there's all these principles, but really there are just a handful of core ones, like 2 or 3 possibly. She never really says what they are, but Karen, and I agree with her, suggests that those core principles are that children are born persons and that education is the science of relationship. And if you think about it, what we believe about childhood, what we believe about education is the be all and end all of how we outwork then these principles. And so we can't replicate everything. I mean, I personally would get very bored. And I'd be very, and I have tried to replicate certain things and thought, this just doesn't work. So make it your own. Study her work, understand the principles, and make it your own. And I hark on about that a lot, and I have been for the past 10 15 years online in various places, but it's because it's so freeing. And I have talked to hundreds of home educating mums through coaching and through workshops, and they'll often come out of a place of, I tried to do this in such a rigid way. I tried to follow a certain amount of page numbers and a certain amount of books and get everything in and fit it in. And they're completely burnt out. And it's because they're trying to replicate and they're not trying to reform. And so, again, you have to consider what that looks like for you. It doesn't mean we don't appreciate the beauty of the setting, but we more importantly have to appreciate the beauty of our children, their needs, their stage of learning, and our whole family setup. All right, and I think this is number 5. The Charlotte Mason method is just about books and nature study. I've heard this so many times. Oh yes, that's just books and nature study. And again, tied with that is this misunderstanding that it's not thorough enough, it's not rigid, and it's not rigorous. That's the word that people use, isn't it? It's not thorough enough. And also tied in with this is linked to that one we said earlier, which is it's just for young children, because young children can play out in nature and we can read books to them. And yes, we do talk about books and nature study quite a lot. This is a big part of the living education. And I think these nature study particularly, I mean, you've got Steiner and you've got Montessori and all these various educational approaches that do focus on being outside. But the unique nature of Charlotte Mason's understanding and her communication of why children should be outside as much as possible is to do with that living education. Connect them with their creator. If you actually get them to sit with a wildflower and watch a blackbird picking up sticks to build a nest, they are more likely to create a connection that becomes their own than just sitting and reading a book about it. And she encouraged them to actually get into nature to connect with their creator. And that was the whole divine inspiration that not only comes from books and art and music, but straight from God through creation, through nature. And so that's why she emphasized that so much, also saying that it was a foundation to scientific study. The books element, I mean, books, she said, didn't he? Of the finest of books and living books, books that were that actually where the author was speaking to the mind of the child. That's where you get this mind to mind wonderful connection. She said, get out of the way. So yes, there's a huge emphasis on the books we read and getting outside. But as you and I know, this is just a tiny element, it's an element of the Charlotte Mason method and philosophy. So here's my question to you. How would you respond if someone just said that to you? I think it's easy to say, oh, no, it's not. There's so much more. But what context would you give? How would you explain what the philosophy and method is? If you're live in the room, I'd love you to put that in the chat. How do you describe a Charlotte Mason education? What do you say it's like? If you're watching on the replay, pop it into the Substack replay notes. What do you say to people when they say, what is the Charlotte Mason method? What is it? What is their philosophy? And for me, I talk about it, I communicate it as an upside down, inside out educational approach. And what I mean by this is that where traditional education spoon feeds essentially children what we think they should know, what we say they should know, for them to then answer closed questions and exams and the set answers. What the Charlotte Mason philosophy does is flips that all on the head, and it provides a feast of learning, invites the child to the table and says, tuck in and then tell me what you think. And it's such a paradigm shift, but yet at the same time feels so subtle in so many ways. And so we're shifting everything inside out, upside down, educational approach. So we're using books, art, music, poetry, nature, science, all the different elements to introduce our children to knowledge, to open a door so that they can come on in, they're invited in to not only glean from it and take from it, but to contribute to it. Again, this is an upside down nature of a Charlotte Mason education, is that traditional education says, let me tell you, I am the expert, let me tell you what I know, and then you must regurgitate that to then move on. And a Charlotte Mason education says, no, we're all in this together. We all get to contribute. We all get to learn. We all get to glean. Come on in. Let me hear what you have heard. Let me hear what you have seen and experienced. So they are, let's just go back through them before I pop in the chat and see what you've said there. So here's just 5 we've broken down this evening. Charlotte Mason education is only for young children. So now if you ever hear this, if you ever see it online or a friend says it to you, you know how to respond. The Charlotte Mason method is rigid and old-fashioned. The Charlotte Mason method is anti-technology. You must replicate a Victorian classroom to do it right. And the Charlotte Mason method is just about books and nature study. So how do you communicate what a Charlotte Mason education is? I'm going to jump in the chat and find out what our friends in the room have said. Okay, so Joanne's saying it's a way of life equivalent to Dorothy on Wizard of Oz. When everything went colour, you learn for life. Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Everything turns into colour. Yeah, that's a really, really lovely way of describing it. Rachel's saying a Charlotte Mason education is putting my children in front of a feast of living ideas about God, man, and the world. I allow my child to take from it what she can digest, and is a never-ending process. It is for everyone their whole lives. It is as much for me as for my kids. So true, Rachel. We're going to have fun in November talking about this. Amazing. Yes, I love that. I'm just going to go back a little bit and see what else you guys have been saying. Demelza, yes, holistic learning and finding out together. That's right. I am the facilitator, not the educator. Absolutely. And I often say, use that language. Language creates culture. So if you want to change the way you think, change the way you speak. So even, down this kind of thing that Demels has just said, I will often say, yeah, I facilitated my children's education. I walked alongside them and invited them in and wanted to learn from. I mean, I learned from my children probably so much more than they actually learned from me. I just opened the books and opened the door to learning for them. I love that. Yeah, Leah's saying, I think it education being an atmosphere is a huge part for us. It's holistic. Yeah, me too. I love that. Absolutely brilliant. Yes, okay. Rachel is now referring to Art Middleclough's talk, and it's called Trusting the Method. If anyone can quickly find it and wants to pop it in the chat, that would be amazing just for you guys in the room. I know you watching on the replay, you'll either go and find it or I will remember to post it for you. Rachel saying she cried when she listened. So did I, Rachel, and I was in the room. And it was one of those, I wanted him to drop the mic and walk away, just like drop it from a height. It was absolutely fantastic. And the way he delivers it is so straight. He just reads. And it was very, very moving. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Oh, you've posted it already. See? So if you have a little scroll, guys, Rachel has posted the talk there. That's fantastic. Erica's saying, picture this is the plant app. Yes, it is. I love that one. And I think the rest of you are just asking about the books. Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, if there's anything else, any other comments, questions, things that you would like to add, that has brought us to exactly 1 hour. Look at me being on time for once. So that is the end of this session, and we're almost at the end of, like I've said, of the Charlotte Mason Box live courses. If anyone is watching for the first time, welcome, welcome. We have hours and hours and hours of workshops of support. I think I've got 3 or 4 years worth of workshops online. So please do get in touch if there's something specific you'd love to know about. At some point, I may hire one of my children to catalogue them so we can actually get them all out to you in order of things. But currently on the Substack site, you can go on your browser, on the Mind Gallery, you can click on Charlotte Mason Unboxed, and there's lots of courses there. And yeah, and go back to our workshop nights as well. So there's lots and lots you can learn. But guys, thank you to all those who have watched, been in the room and joined us live. It's lovely to be with you. And thank you to everyone watching on the replay. I really hope that I remembered to link everything. If I didn't and you're watching, just pop it in the Substack chat and just say, Leah, you forgot to link this, and I will add it on there. Guys, have a lovely rest of your day. Joanne is crocheting away there. I love that. And I was telling Joanne earlier about your felting, Leah. She's been felting her cat, not her actual cats, because that would be quite cruel, but she's been replicating her cats. Can you show us one really quickly, Joanne? Are they there? And I was like, you have to show Leah this. They're amazing. Look, that is a felt. I know, right? Look at that. Yeah, she's very good. She just like taught herself, like, I don't know, yesterday or something. Anyway, I am singing the praises of one of our lovely Mind Gallery members who is just a really inspiring handicrafter. It's so good. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to bid you all farewell. And Bronte Room is on this Friday. I do need to adjust the time a little bit just because of a call, but I will let you all know. But Bronte Room is on. I'm around for, well, it's on for many Fridays for the next few weeks. So hopefully we'll see you and your felted cats there, or your felted Mrs. Tingy Wiggles, or whatever you're doing, or your commonplace books. All right, guys, lovely to spend an hour with you. I hope this has been helpful. You know where I am if you've got any questions, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye.